The city above me never really sleeps. It just changes the kind of noise it makes. Up there, it's car horns, drunk laughter, phones buzzing, music bleeding out of cabs. Down here, it's metal breathing, air hissing through old pipes, a long, tired sigh of a train pulling out of a station like it's had enough of people for one night. My name doesn't matter, my uniform does. I'm the one who cleans the mess. Everyone pretends they never left. It was a little after 2 a.m. when the night stopped feeling like night and started feeling like something was paying attention. I was at the far end of the platform at 42nd Street, the side most people don't see, the part with the maintenance door and the old posters no one bothers to rip down anymore. Mop bucket, gloves, headphones dead because I forgot to charge them. That's when the train lights died. Not dimmed, not flickered, just gone. Fluorescence overhead snapped out, one by one, like somebody was walking a hand along a row of light switches. The entire platform dropped into this heavy, choking dark that made my lungs feel too small. For a second, I thought power. Outed. I've been through a few. You just wait. Emergency lights kick in, you curse coned, life limps on. But the night didn't go quiet like it usually does. It got organized. The rats disappeared first. You don't notice how loud rats are until they stop. The scratching under the benches, the tiny claws on tile, the occasional squeaks, all of it cut off like someone hit mute on the floor. That's when I heard it. A low rumble rolling in from the tunnel. At first I thought it was a train, but there was no wind, no metal grind, no headlight glow, just this sound deep, thick, like a growl started inside something too big to fit in a station and had to squeeze through concrete. My mop handle trembled in my hand. I told myself it was vibration from the tracks, but the tracks were dead still. One of the emergency lights finally blinked on above the far edge of the platform. It didn't light much, just the yellow line, a slice of tunnel, the warning sign that says, "Do not cross tracks." In that yellowish cone of light, I saw it, for long hooked claws resting on the platform edge. Not hands, not feet. Something between both black fur, matted with grime and glittering with tiny metal flakes, caught the weak light like broken glass. The claws flexed, scraping the concrete with a sound that made my teeth hurt. The night hadn't gone dark because power failed. It had gone dark because something wanted it that way, and it had climbed up from the tracks to claim it. You're listening to whispering narratives, and this is what happens when the subway decides which predator rules its tunnels. Asterisk, asterisk, look. You work nights long enough in this city, you start collecting stories you don't tell HR. Subway crews talk, track inspectors, signal techs, old-timers who've been down here since tokens and graffiti wars. You'll stand too long in a break room with them. You'll hear about the black dog that runs alongside out of Serby's trains with eyes that reflect no light at all. The thing on all fours that keeps pace with the emergency truck through the side tunnel, then stands up when it hits a section with no cameras. The growls the mic sometimes picks up on the dispatch channel between midnight and 3. Every system has ghosts. Ours just have claws. There's this one guy, Louise, retired now, used to clear debris off the tracks. He'd tell anyone who'd listen about a big shadow that its light near an abandoned spur line under the East River. Not a person, he'd say, tapping his cigarette ash into an old coffee lid. Too big, too stretched. Like a wolf that learned to walk when nobody was looking. You go past its spot, you feel it in your breathing. We laughed. We called it the tunnel wolf. Someone drew it on a locker door, big teeth, goofy eyes, tail. It became a joke, a mascot. People took selfies with it. No one drew what Luis actually described, something that moved wrong, breathed like a furnace. and watch the workers from just beyond the edge of their headlamp beam. You tell yourself stories like that are just the way people give shape to the feeling that something about a place is off. You blame carbon monoxide, odd acoustics, tired eyes. You don't think about them at 2 a.m. when the lights go out and the rats vanish and your mop handle clicks against the floor because your hand won't stop shaking. I stood as still as I could. My heart sounded too loud in my ears. The platform stretched longer than it ever had. Rows of empty benches like pews in a church. Nobody prayed in anymore. Those claws, the ones at the edge, lifted, slow and deliberate. And then something heavy stepped forward. First came the hand, bigger than any human hand has a right to be. Fingertips tipped with black, curved talons. The fur along the back of it bristled as if it was irritated by the emergency light. Then the forearm, then the shoulder dotted pulled itself up with a kind of lazy strength, like the platform weighed nothing and gravity was just a suggestion. I should have run then, I know that. Every survival instinct, I never thought I had screamed at me to put one foot in front of the other and go. But I didn't run, because the growl from the tunnel changed. It stopped sounding singular, stopped sounding like one throat. Somewhere further down the darkness, maybe 20, 30 yards into the black, a second growl answered dot higher. Sharper, meaner. The thing climbing onto the platform froze, its ears high, pointed, furred, pricked forward. The fur down its spine puffed like an angry dog's, only thicker, more controlled. It turned its head slightly, and I saw its profile catch the light. Long muzzle, wet nose, teeth like broken subway tiles jammed into a meat grinder. Its eyes weren't red, they were a deep, burned amber, like someone had left coals behind its pupils. Whatever was in the tunnel didn't care that it was there. It was coming anyway. And for the first time in my life, I realized something I'd never considered. We weren't the only ones who claimed territory under this city, and I'd just clocked in for a shift in the middle of someone else's turf war. Asterisk, asterisk, the first wolf, because I'm done pretending it was anything else, stepped fully onto the platform. It was hunched, but even like that, it stood taller than any person I've ever met. Thick, black fur clung to its frame in ragged clumps, dusted in grey with the same grime that coats every surface down here. Its legs bent wrong back the way a dog's do, joints stacked for power, not comfort. Every move it made was quiet, too quiet. I've seen drunk guys stumble, seen people in costumes jump off trains on Halloween. This wasn't that. This thing moved like it weighed 500 pounds, but could decide at any moment to weigh nothing at all. It sniffed the air, a sharp, wet sound. Its gaze flicked past me, over me, through me. I pressed myself against the vending machine, so hard the plastic creaked. Then the other growl rolled down the tunnel again. Closer now, the sound hit my chest before my ears. This one was raw, less controlled. The kind of sound a younger dog makes when it hasn't learned whether it's allowed to challenge yet. The black-furred wolf, the one on the platform, answered with a shorter, deeper rumble that felt like it was warning everything in a 5-state in radius. What walked into the edge of the emergency light next wasn't on the platform, not yet. It padded along the tracks themselves, tail low, head forward. Its fur was lighter grey, shot through with white, the colour of subway dust and old bone. It was leaner too, but nothing about it seemed weaker. It had the look of something, hungry enough to eat the first thing that looked away. I remember the exact moment it looked up at the older wolf. 2 sets of eyes met amber on the platform. Icy blue on the tracks. The air between them went still in a way I've only ever felt once before, right before a train screams into the station and you know, if you step too close to the edge, you're done. They didn't look at me. They didn't care about me. I was background noise, trash, a mop with lungs, All their focus was on each other. Amber took a step closer to the platform edge. Blue matched it, claws clicking against the third rail. No flinch, no jolt, nothing. That's when I realized the third rail wasn't humming. None of the power was. The blackout wasn't an accident. Something had stolen the current from the tracks and turned it into silence for them. The grey one on the tracks opened its mouth and let out a long, rising howl that bounced off the tunnel walls. It didn't sound like the movie kind. No romantic, lonely notes under the stars. This was a challenge. Even if you don't speak the language, you feel it in your teeth, in the meat at the base of your skull. The black one answered, short, final, the kind of sound that says, "This is mine. If you're still listening to this, don't look away now." Because what happened next wasn't a hunt. It wasn't about food or territory or fear. It was about which monster got to call this kingdom home. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The emergency lights flickered again, like they weren't sure which side to take. One overhead bulb buzzed, flared, and then died, plunging half the platform into shadow. The vending machine beside me glowed faintly from its own LEDs, casting a sick, artificial halo around my cheap chips and warm soda. I was shaking so hard now I could hear my teeth clicking when I clenched them. My brain was trying to throw me a rope of normal thoughts. You're tired. This is stress. Maybe sleep, maybe a gas leak. Maybe a clawed footstep scraped against tile, and that rope snapped clean. The black-furred wolf, I started calling it. Trackwalker in my head took another step, putting more of its body in sight. Scars lined its ribs, pale under the fur. One ear was torn at the tip. It carried itself like something that had been hit, shot, burned, and gotten bored of surviving all of it. The grey one, Glass Fang, for the way the light kept catching, on its teeth, paced along the tracks below, never breaking eye contact. It stopped under the lip of the platform, directly beneath Trackwalker, like a challenger kneeling at the foot of a king. Then it did something that almost made me cry from sheer confusion. It sat back on its haunches and tilted its head like it was waiting. Trackwalker stared down for a long, heavy moment. The whole platform felt like it was leaning in, listening. Then the older wolf turned its head slightly and looked right at me. Not past, not through. At those amber eyes pinned me in place. I couldn't tell if it could see my face behind the dirty plastic of the vending machine reflection, or if it just smelled me, heard the frantic thud of my heart. For a heartbeat, I wasn't background anymore. I was knowledge that made a low sound, not a growl, not quite. Something softer, almost like a cough swallowed halfway down a throat full of fangs. I swear to you, it felt like a warning. Stay still. Behind it, down the length of the station, something else moved. I'd always thought of the subway as a system, tracks, lines, signals, straight paths, harsh right angles. But from where I was standing, with half the lights out and the other half bleeding weak yellow onto grimy tile, the station looked like something older. Columns became stone pillars. The arched ceiling turned into a ribcage of concrete. The tunnel openings yawed like mouths waiting to swallow. It was a cathedral, not ours. There's Anne, every bit of graffiti I'd ever ignored. The long claw marks etched into a pillar. The weird sigil scratched above a maintenance door. The splatters of something too dark to be painted. All rearranged itself in my mind into one clear truth. This place had been marked, claimed layer by layer, year after year. We didn't build a subway under the city. We built a feeding run. Through an older territory, Glass Fang rose from its brief, mocking stillness and took 3 fast steps backward along the tracks, claws clattering against the wood ties. It lowered its head, shoulders bunching, tail stiffening like a spear. Trackwalker did the opposite. It straightened to its full height, towering over the gap. It rolled its shoulders, cracking muscle and bone with sounds like rocks grinding together. Its claws flexed, digging furrows into the platform edge. Somewhere beyond the turn, deep in the tunnel, wind started to move. Trash rustled. A distant vibration touched the rails. A train was coming, and neither of them cared. Glassfang moved. First it exploded forward, along the tracks in a blur of grey and dust, claws firing sparks off the dead metal, as if sheer anger could bring the power back. Its howl tore through the station higher, wild, reckless. Trackwalker jumped, not away, not back. Down it dropped, from the platform like a boulder, landing with both feet on the narrow gravel between the rails. The ground jumped under the impact. I grabbed the vending machine to keep from falling. For one suspended second, they were nose to nose. Two nightmares from the same moon, different centuries. Amber and blue stared each other down. Gums curled, muscles locked. Then everything hit at once. Glassfang lunged low, going for the chest, claws raking for ribs. Trackwalker twisted, taking the hit across its shoulder instead. Fur and skin tore, dark blood sprayed, spattering the third rail in fat. Natural drops. The older wolf's answering swipe caught Glassfang across the muzzle. Bone crunched. One fang snapped and flew into the gravel like a piece of shrapnel. They weren't fighting like animals. They were fighting like soldiers. Every move had a purpose. Every play tested a boundary. Glassfang darted to the side, using the tight space of the tracks to its advantage, bouncing off the tunnel wall to get an angle on Trackwalker's exposed flank. It was faster, no question. Younger legs, less weight to drag. Trackwalker was stronger and meaner. It fought like something that had learnt the hard way what didn't work. It let Glassfang have shallow cuts in exchange for deeper ones. Let itself be shoved closer to the platform edge so it could slam the younger wolf's skull into a support beam. The entire station shook. Dust rained down from the ceiling in a dirty halo. I don't know how long it lasted. Time went strange. Every second stretched thin with noise, snarls, howls. The wet thud of bodies hitting cement at one point. Glassfang managed to get behind Trackwalker, back legs braced on the tie, forelimbs locking around the older wolf's throat. A dominance hold. Trackwalker's front claws scrabbled at the gravel. Its breaths grew short, harsh. For a heartbeat, the younger wolf looked victorious. Then Trackwalker let itself fall sideways. Its full weight slammed Glassfang against the sharp edge of the third rail. There was no electricity, but metal doesn't need power to break bone. The crunch echoed all the way up my spine. Glassfang yelped a sound too close to human pain for comfort. They rolled, snarling, a tangle of limbs and teeth and blood. Glassfang kicked free, both hind paws connecting with Trackwalker's chest. The older wolf skidded backward, claws gouging deep trenches in the gravel. That's when the train announced itself. A distant roar, air pressure changing in the tunnel. A single headlight blooming far, far down the curve. Glassfang noticed first. Its eyes flicked toward the oncoming light, then back to Trackwalker. The choice was clear, even to me. Get out of the way, Trackwalker didn't move. It squared its shoulders in the center of the tracks, chest heaving, blood matting its fur. It stared Glassfang down, while the wind from the approaching train whipped their fur sideways. This wasn't just a fight anymore. This was a test. Will you stand your ground when the world tries to erase you? Glassfang hesitated. Just a heartbeat, a flicker in the eyes, a weight shift. Trackwalker saw it, felt it, judged it, then it charged. They collided mid-howl, claws sinking into each other's flesh, jaws clamping down wherever they could find purchase. The train's light washed over them, turning fur into silhouettes, blood into black slicks. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I just watched as two monsters fought for the right to exist under a city that didn't know they were there. Asterisk, asterisk. Everything blew apart in the last 3 seconds. The train barreled toward the station, horn screaming, headlight glare filling the tunnel like a miniature sun. The driver would have seen 2 shapes on the tracks, too big to be people, too wrong to be explained. Truckwalker twisted at the last instant, putting its back to the train and Glassfang between itself and the oncoming metal. Glassfang realized too late what that position meant. It tried to wrench free, claws tearing bloody lines down Truckwalker's side. The older wolf only tightened its grip for a split second. I saw them perfectly. Truckwalker's jaws locked on Glassfang's throat. Glassfang's blue eyes wide, reflecting the train's light and something like fear. Then the train hit. It didn't hit them the way it had hit a person. The driver had already slammed the brakes. Sparks screamed off the rails as metal fought momentum. The front of the train plowed through them, but it felt, resisted, like whatever they were didn't obey the same rules we do. I saw Glassfang's body jerk, twist, flung upward and sideways into the dark underbelly of the platform. Truckwalker went low, bracing against the blast of air, claws digging deep for purchase. The train screeched past, finally grinding to a halt halfway into the station. The smell of burned metal and hot brakes filled the air, wrestling against blood and wet fur. Silence followed, broken only by the distant shouts of confused passengers, the crackle of a panicked conductor on the PA, the hiss of cooling pipes. I realized I was on my knees. I don't remember falling. Slowly, carefully, I leaned just far enough around the vending machine to see the tracks. Glassfang was gone. Not a body, not a smear. Just a few splashes of something dark on the third rail and a faint, mangled tooth lodged in the gravel. Truckwalker stood in the shadows just beyond the front car, half obscured by steam. Its chest rose and fell in slow, deliberate breaths. It was bleeding badly. One foreleg shook with the effort of staying straight. Passengers started disembarking onto the far side of the train, called there by staff trying to manage the mechanical issue. They laughed nervously, exchanged frustrated complaints, pulled out their phones to complain to friends. None of them looked this way. No one ever looks at the far end of the platform. Truckwalker did. It turned its head toward me again, eyes duller now, but still burning with that banked ember light. It limped closer, each step leaving a dark, wet print on the gravel. I pressed back against the machine, breath trapped somewhere between lungs and throat. It reached the point directly below me and lifted one clawed hand. Slow, careful, not in a swipe, not in an attack. It pressed those claws into the concrete pillar beside the tracks and dragged down. The sound tore into my skull, a long, shivering screech of claw on cement. Dust fell in a straight line. When it was done, there was a fresh mark on the pillar, 3 deep grooves, the middle one slightly longer than the others. A signature or a warning. Maybe both. Our eyes met one last time. In that moment, I swear, I understood something that had nothing to do with words. This is finished for now, but this is far from over. Truckwalker stepped back into the deeper shadow between the cars. When the station staff finally looked this way, there was nothing to see but rust, steam, and an old pillar with a new scar. Asterisk, 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 they said it was a brake issue. That's what the report called it. Unexpected deceleration due to sudden power irregularity. I read the incident summary 3 days later on a bulletin board while pretending to fix a mop head. No mention of massive shapes on the tracks. No mention of fresh gouges in concrete. No mention of blood. They'd cleaned it all, just like I was supposed to. I went back to that same platform a week later. Power was fine, lights steady, trains on schedule, rats back to their usual business. The vending machine beside me hummed in its sane, obnoxious tone, but the pillar still had those 3 marks. Fresh, sharp, too deep for any human tool used by anyone who wanted to finish their shift with all their fingers. The other guys noticed it too. "Kids," one of them said, "always tagging stuff. Can't leave nothing alone." "Yeah," another laughed. "You should have seen the tunnel wolf drawing somebody did on the locker back in the day. That thing looked like a werewolf's bad yearbook photo." They laughed. They moved on. The city kept breathing. That night, at home, I opened a map of the subway system on my phone. Not the tourist one, the one someone uploaded with the old lines. The abandoned platforms, the closed tunnels. I traced a line with my finger from my station out through 3 unused branches, 2 maintenance loops, and 1 sealed-off connection that never got finished. If I followed that path far enough, the red line turned grey. The label faded. No one had bothered to mark what was out there anymore. But I knew, somewhere in that grey space, where no train runs and no cameras watch, a wounded king limps through the dark, bleeding on old stone and steel. Somewhere in those forgotten tunnels, bones are arranged in patterns only a predator understands. Scratches on wall and pillar spell out sentences in a language older than this city, older than the country, older than the idea of covering the earth with concrete and pretending we own it. And somewhere, in the dark, between stations, something younger still is regrowing a broken tooth. Something that once looked up at an older nightmare and thought, "I can take what's yours." It didn't win this time, but it learned. You can feel it if you ride late enough. Sit on a nearly empty car at 2:13 a.m. when the drunks have mostly gone home and the graveyard shifts are too tired to talk. Watch the windows when your train passes another one in a tunnel. That quick moment when you see yourself reflected over the faces of strangers. Sometimes, if you catch the angle just wrong, there's a shape behind you that doesn't belong. In the reflection, something tall, something furred, something with eyes that don't care about your schedule, your rent, your plans. They're not hunting us. Not usually. We're just there, like mice in the walls of a cathedral. But every kingdom needs a king, and every king has to defend his throne. Down in the tunnels under New York, the trains aren't the only things that run on a schedule. There's a rhythm you don't see until it's too late. Quiet nights, power dips, blackouts in specific segments, and somewhere in that pattern, 2 shapes circle each other in the dark, waiting for the next time the city blinks long enough for them to decide who rules what's underneath. If you ever find yourself standing alone on a platform past 2 a.m. and the lights go out one by one, don't go to the edge to look for the train. You might find it. You might find something else first. And if the growl that rolls out of the tunnel sounds like it came from the concrete itself, you're not in a station anymore. You're in someone's territory. This is Whispering Narratives. If you're still here, still listening in the dark, don't ride the next train alone. Subscribe before the next full moon and stay close to the pack, because the next story, it's already pacing the tracks, asterisk,